Hello everybody, here we are, the first tutorial video. So we're going to start on a really positive note. Most startups fail. What a terrible thing to say to a new student, but don't worry. This is all going to be about ways that you can fix that. So let's take a look at what we've got in store. So the statistics are pretty horrible actually, 90% failure rate for a startup. That's not very encouraging, I apologize for that, but don't worry, as we go on, you're going to be filled with confidence on how you can be in that 10% because we're going to understand the reasons behind the failures. We'll know the key factors so that you can get into the 10%. And one thing I will tell you is that if you're starting an e-commerce store or already have an e-commerce store, your chances of success are already higher. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So we're going to look into those and we're going to look into all the other things to increase your chance of success. So what are the key reasons that we see startups failing? We need to solve them. So these are the most common ones. Lack of motivation. Often we don't see growth fast enough. Things aren't moving quick enough. We find often we lose motivation. Sometimes it can be bad relationships. Maybe we work with a friend or family member and we thought it would have been good, but it doesn't work out that way. Or maybe we just picked a bad business partner. So evaluate those people that you work with before you get into it. Please don't jump into any business relationships unless you really evaluate how you think they're going to perform as a business person. I'm not saying don't get involved with family because one of my biggest successes was a family business. One of my first big businesses had friends who were business partners. Just make sure you evaluate it properly. Choosing the wrong industry or products for that matter. This is paramount. Make sure the industry that you choose is the right one, that it's primed for success, that people are interested in buying products in that industry. So we're going to take a look at that and ways you can optimize that. And last but certainly not least is going to be your business model. So that covers a very, very large range of things. But I specifically want to talk about keeping your overheads low, keeping your margins high, keeping your supply chains good. All those things are really going to matter to ensure you have enough money to keep the business going and to make a profit. And if you're doing that, that's going to help with your motivation too. So here are our strategies for success. And it's all about omitting those reasons that businesses fail. So we want to maintain our motivation. We want to choose the right industry. We choose the right products and we keep our overheads low. Sounds pretty simple right now, but how do we actually do that? So here are some great ways to keep yourself motivated in your business. First of all, your niche. Choose a niche that you love, that you're passionate about. Starting a business is hard, growing a business is hard, but you'll have more motivation if you're enjoying it. Making money in the early days is much more difficult. As the business grows, it becomes easier. But getting that growth will require hard work, and it's easier to work hard on something you love. Simple as that. Also, having your niche on trend is very, very good. That means there's going to be much more customers looking for you, so you're going to have many more opportunities to do business. But don't just pick a fad. You want to pick something that has potential long term. And we're going to look at that later and also look at tools on how you can find trends. And also, Google loves a niche. Google will rank a niche business higher than a general business. So let's take something like horse riding equipment. If you're a specialist in that area, you've got a better chance of ranking on first page in Google when you're a specialist. If you're a general website, let's say Decathlon or Amazon, you're unlikely to be able to rank as well because Google wants to return experts. If you consider all of those things when choosing your niche, there'll be lots of benefits that are going to help to keep you motivated. Learn and do. So what do I mean by that? I mean, learn about something before you do it. That means you're going to be much better at it, whether that's picking products, doing digital marketing, whatever it happens to be in your business. Learn as much as you can before you implement it. And then start the work even when you suck. Most people suck at things when they're just starting out. Just making these slides took me all day. It's my first time using the software. I know I'll get better at it and quicker at it as time goes by. But the only way that I do that is by learning, watching some videos on it, and doing it to get familiar with it. And it'll be the same in many aspects of your business. So don't let sucking at something hold you back. Learn about it, do it again until you get good, because it will come. And making lists. This is something I used to love to do when I was growing my businesses. I'm a huge procrastinator, so sometimes I know I want to get something done, but I keep putting it off and off and off. I find that once I started making lists, it gave me structure and I tended to complete them most of the day. I was much more motivated to do so. And in those lists, I would always look for low-hanging fruit. Things that I can work on now that are going to move the business forward as much as possible. Identifying those things can be key to keep your business growing. So try to focus on those things that really matter to growing your business rather than maybe what might be more fun to work on. Think about what pushes it forward. And in those lists, Also make weekly and monthly goals. So something in the end of your calendar that you need to have completed. That could mean working on it daily, chipping away at it, or just having a deadline in place to push you harder when it gets close. It's always great to have a long-term goal, maybe 6 months or a year away. I want to have this much website traffic. I want to generate this much sales, whatever it happens to be, something to achieve. And again, that's going to help keep you motivated and keep you pushing towards it. And when you start going back and looking at all the things on your list that you've completed, you'll be surprised at just how much you've achieved and how many of those goals that you've succeeded in. Hard work needs your motivation, but motivation needs feeding with progress and interest. So try to use all those little tips that I've just given you as a guide to feed that motivation, and that motivation is going to keep you working hard. Choosing the right industry is going to be critical for any startup. So let's look at some of the key things that you want to consider. So of course, where your passion is. We covered that in motivation, but it's still important in being the right industry. So how do we choose the right industry? Well, there's a number of things that can help. So where is your passion? I'm aware we just mentioned this, but it also applies to choosing the right industry. Because if you're not motivated in your industry, it's the wrong industry for you. And that's going to be very important in the challenging times. And you want to be on trend, but it also needs to be a lasting trend. So it's good to choose an industry with long-term growth potential and not just a fad. Try to identify those emerging trends and find ways to capitalize on them. So there's a great tool you can use for that. You might have heard of it before. It's called Google Trends. So I want to take a little look at that with you guys. So here it is, trends.google.com. And all you need to do is type in a keyword to see how it's trending. So let's say we looked at something like watches. Type it in, hit explore, and then we come up with a number of metrics. So here we have interest over time, but this is just on the past day. I can actually look back past, say, the past 12 months. That's going to give me some interesting data. And we can see now that the curve has been going up, dropped a little bit. We can look at different countries. So let's look at worldwide. Say we wanted to reach a global market. We can see that trend moving up. So there seems to be something in watches where it's dipped here and peaked here. We're certainly at the high point in this last 12 months. We can take a look back a little bit further, 5 years, and we can see there is a trend moving upwards. So that's very, very exciting. So then we might want to move down and see what are the related treasuries. So down here we have Joker and Witch watches. Again, I don't know what it is. I can click on it. I can find out a lot more about the trends. And look, that's came from almost nowhere and has spurred it into growth. So no matter what category it is that you're looking at, you can use Google Trends to find patterns. And you can go into different countries, different related topics. There's so much information there. So whatever your industry is, you can start exploring and looking for trends, looking for things you maybe didn't know about, or maybe just didn't know that they were exploding. It can also help you to reach new markets. You might realize, I've been selling in the UK, but they're really looking for my product in Ireland. So you know it's worth investing in. So Google Trends, really, really useful. Highly recommend getting involved with that tool. There's lots of tutorials on how to get good at it. But these are just the very basics I'm showing you. And as you can see, there's already some really interesting insights. So access to a USP is very, very important. So let's say you're in the snowboarding industry and you came across a manufacturer making something very unique that wasn't in your country. Well, what a great opportunity to pique people's interest and to get people onto your website. So look for those USPs, something different. Maybe it solves a problem. Maybe it's just something nobody else has. And if you think it's a really good one, do a little bit of research on it. And it could be something that helps set your business apart from everyone else and draws in a lot of new customers. Having access to good suppliers is very, very important. These are suppliers that you can build up real relationships with. I don't mean some internet website where you can order off and they'll send it out to the customer for you and you never meet them. Because when you need some service, maybe there's an issue with products, maybe there's an issue with shipping, maybe there's an issue in the whole industry and you need some support, well, these guys generally won't be there for you. I've had issues in the past through things out of our control and we've went to our suppliers and said, guys, we need a little bit of help here. And because we've had relationships built up over the years, they've done things like given lines of credit, they've expedited shipping, they've flown across seas to resolve problems and look at products. They've done so much for us over the years because we've had good, lasting relationships. So it's very important to find suppliers that you have the potential to build those relationships with. So we really think this last one's important. Having a niche or a range of products that require repeat business. And the reason that this is important is it's difficult enough to get customers onto your website and get them to convert. But if you then create an opportunity to do business with them again and again and again, that can give your business the snowballing effect that as it grows, those existing customers are coming back and you're getting new customers. So the whole thing just gathers and gathers and gathers. And before you know it, you've got a huge business. And if you're just starting out, think of industries that are going to require repeat purchases. Maybe it's a hobby business. Maybe you're selling something that requires maintenance products. All of those things will keep customers coming back to you again and again and again. Now let's take a look at some products. And I love this little quote by Seth Godin, who wrote the marketing book, Purple Cow. Really, really good read if you ever get the chance. Don't find customers for your products, find products for your customers. So what that means is whatever industry you're in, whatever website you currently have or are thinking of building, use tools like Google Trends to find out what your customers are actually looking for and make sure you are giving it to them. And if you're giving it to them, you're much more likely to increase your sales because these are things that your customers actually want. Now, when I'm choosing product ranges, there's a lot of factors that really, really come into it. But if you're trying to keep costs down, and if you're running an e-commerce startup, for example, or you're running your business from home, you don't have a lot of money for big warehousing, well, small is going to be beautiful. It's easy to store, it's inexpensive to ship, you can scale it globally because of that, and returns are low friction, which helps increase your conversions. Sending a sofa halfway across the world just isn't a viable option. And of course, your customer knows that they can't return it if there's a problem, so they're never going to buy it. So the smaller that item is, the more chance and more opportunity you're going to have to send it further and increase your potential customer base. And the fact that you can keep it at home is a massive bonus. Expensive is a choice, and you got to make it. If you're selling expensive goods, of course, you're going to have more profit. Selling a $500 item for $700 is way more profitable than selling a $50 item for $100. You'll have to sell 4 times as many of the $50 items. Of course, you need less orders to make more money, so that's less work, which is a great bonus. But high-ticket items come with very tough competition and very difficult entry. You're not just going to be able to rock up to Rolex and say, hey, I want to supply your stuff. Of course not. You're going to have some established business and some incredible premium marketing. Now, one of the good things today about premium marketing and premium websites is it's much easier accessible with AI. I'm sure many of you guys have seen some of the amazing videos out there where people brand a product of their own and it looks like a $100,000 advert. A lot of that can be done by AI nowadays. Of course, the big brands are very on to that, so you've got to be careful. So if it was me, I would probably look to position myself as premium so as I can get those higher margins, and I'd be using AI to build my brand. I would be trying to actively avoid products that are likely to have a lot of returns or a lot of exchanges. So clothing, shoes, things like that, because the first question is going to be, will it fit me? I might not buy it because it might not fit me and I can't be bothered doing the returns. But let's say they do buy it, well then it doesn't fit and they have to send it back. And that happens a lot of the time. I know my wife, for example, she buys massive hauls from all the clothing websites and she sends 80% of it back. She orders everything in 2 or 3 sizes. And it just must be a logistical nightmare for the companies that have to deal with that. So they've got big, expensive processes in place. And trying to compete with those, I think, is very, very difficult. And you've probably heard a lot of them are going bust because of the high return rates. You really want to do your best to avoid anything that's likely to have that. If you are selling products that come in different sizes, again, that's just more space. So just be aware of that when you're trying to pick any sort of product range. And don't forget, dealing with all those exchanges is going to be a massive drain on your resources. So try to avoid that if you can. Quality is a really, really important thing. First of all, you can command a higher price and higher margins, which is great. You're going to get less returns, which saves you money and saves you time. You're going to build loyal customers. Remember what we said about choosing industries where customers come back? Well, if your products are great quality, there's a much higher chance of them coming back. I don't know if you've ever went to a shop and bought one thing and it wasn't very good, so you just decided none of their stuff is good. That's a common thing to do, and you want to avoid that by making sure all your products are good quality so that when somebody buys something from you, they make that assumption that all your products are good. And if you're doing all that, then you're going to build a very strong reputation. You're going to have great reviews. And that's going to do 2 things: increase your existing customer loyalty, and it's going to attract other customers to your website because of those great reviews. And they're much more likely to do business with you because they already trust you. So where can we find all these products and where should we be avoiding? Physical trade shows are great. One of the biggest in the world is the Canton Fair in China, but not everybody can get to China. But look for trade shows in your niche, and you're going to get around 100 suppliers in a day, compare products, touch them, feel them, negotiate prices. And that's going to be very, very important. And it's going to help you to build relationships, especially if you're meeting up at these trade shows on a regular basis. Additionally, you'll not have to compete with all those guys just buying in the internet, because if a product's easy to buy wholesale in the internet, you're probably going to have a whole ton of competition, and you just want to avoid that, full stop. Having unique products means you can have higher margin and less competition, and that's really important. When I was buying at trade shows, I always looked for things other people didn't have, even if they were a little different, because I don't have to compete on price with them, and my customers only have one choice, one place that they can buy that item. So conversions are much, much higher on it. If you are buying online, if you're not able to get to these trade shows, so using verified marketplaces is much stronger than using something like Alibaba, which is full of middlemen. I really like global sources because they have a very strict vetting process so that they only allow manufacturers on it. So it's really worth taking a look at if you want to get straight to the source of where goods are made and get the lowest prices possible. So let's take a little look at that website just quickly. So this is Global Sources, and as you can see, they have everything that you could want, massive amounts of categories. They've got prices, minimum order quantities, but you can be sure that the people on these are actual manufacturers, and they're very unlikely to be middlemen. So that's one I would trust considerably over Alibaba. The barrier to entry to deal with these guys is probably a little bit trickier, but you can be assured that you're not paying over the odds. I think it's also great to look for domestic manufacturers. So that's factories basically in your own country. And while the unit cost is higher, the shipping's quicker. And of course, having that made in your country tag is a really good way to charge a higher price and give an assurance of quality, which is going to increase your conversion rates. Of course, not everybody can go straight to the manufacturer. It requires a lot of capital. So some of those manufacturers might have distributors that are going to help service you, that are going to give you a bit of a credit. They're going to supply you in smaller quantities and help you get started. And of course, that might mean working for lower margins, but it's going to let you get the ball rolling. And if it works, then you can go direct to the manufacturer. And don't forget, if it's in your country, those shipping costs are lower. There's no import duties. Things will arrive a lot faster. And if you do get an issue, it's going to be much easier to solve with someone local than someone halfway across the world. Another one I really like to look at is reverse engineering your import records. What that means is finding out is which companies are using which suppliers simply by looking at the import records. And the way you can do that is going to Import Yeti. And that's where you can see some of the world's biggest retailers and where they're buying their stock. And it all goes on import records. So let's say you're in America and visited a big store and really liked the product line and knew it wasn't available in your country. Well, you could just go on to Yeti, look them up, and find out where they're buying. It's not going to give you the right answer every time, but it's a great way to start the research. So let's take a look at that Import Yeti website. So taking a look at the Import Yeti website, I've typed in ASOS, and we can see all the different branches of ASOS. So let's take a look at the UK one. That's the one I'd be most familiar with. And we can see some of the information that that's going to give us. So the total shipments over a certain amount of time, what they've spent on shipping. We can look at different months. We can even look at the exchange rates. And of course, then we can see lots of the companies that are supplying them, where they're coming from. 60 sea shipments in total. So there's a lot of information there that you can dig through, see who those suppliers are, what's going where. Some of that's going to be internal, but there's going to be a lot of that from factories. Now, where do you avoid? So try to stay away from these consumer marketplaces. So your AliExpresses and things like that, because they can look cheap, but you'll generally find you're working on very low margins. And because everyone can buy from them, that makes it very, very difficult to make money. Yes, the price differences can be big, but once you start looking into shipping costs, import duties, all those things, the margins get absolutely squeezed. You're just going to find there's too much competition and too low margins. And that can make it difficult to get sales because people can compare those products easily with 100 other websites. And avoid those top 10 listicles of best-selling products on YouTube and TikTok that you might have seen before, because trust me, everyone's buying those products. They've killed the market already and you've missed it. So forget about it. If you see a trend on YouTube or TikTok, it's done. It's too late. It's up to you to get ahead of the trends. And those middleman wholesaler websites, there's tons of them. Obviously, the biggest one is Alibaba. But just be aware that most of the people selling in Alibaba are middlemen. They might be trading companies, but they're often not factories. So you're going to be paying 20 to 30% more. You want to make sure you're dealing with a factory. They might have pictures of the factory, but it's going to be very hard to know. I would tend to avoid those websites altogether. And this one goes without saying, replica hubs. You've probably seen them before, especially online, that make look-alike goods. Stay away from them. You're going to get legal problems, you're going to get problems with your payment providers, and you're going to get poor quality. So don't be tempted. I think we don't really want to see any of you guys getting in trouble with the law. When you do buy products, do thorough research on the selling prices before making any deals. I don't care if you're buying in big bulk or buying one-offs. You need to be 100% sure that you can make big margin on it. I've thought I had good prices before, went away, grabbed a coffee, and looked up what other people were selling at, and had to go back and either renegotiate or cancel the deal. So very, very important to do that before you do any deals. Another one that I really like is asking about clearance lines and bulk purchasing those clearance lines. Some of the best products that I ever bought had been sitting at the back of a warehouse gathering dust. And I was able to come in with a very low ball offer, and they were very happy because they cleared some space, and I was very happy because I was getting products that were worth a lot more money at a lot less cost. And then I was able to sell them very fast at very high margins. Now, drop shipping. To drop ship or not. Drop shipping is a very nasty word in e-commerce, but if you structure it right, it can actually be very lucrative and help your business. It does come with a lot of challenges. So let's take a look at that a little bit. Now, the one thing I want to say is ignore all these drop shipping gurus you see on YouTube. Most of these guys are affiliates. They're making money from roping you into a website. We'll talk about that later. There are some real pros in drop shipping. First of all, minimal startup cost. Who wouldn't want that? You only buy the product after the customer pays you, and that's going to massively reduce any startup cost that you have. You don't need any stock, so it's not going to pile up unsold once the trend's gone. And if you're selling bulky goods, you don't need a massive, massive warehouse to store them all. So all of that is going to lower your costs further, which, if you remember back, one of the reasons businesses fail is because of high costs. And because you're not dealing with sending anything out or not dealing with returns, you really don't need to be tied down to a shop. You don't need to have that warehouse, and you can work from home. And that's going to keep your overheads as low as you possibly can. And because you're not handling any of those logistics, your supplier is going to do all the packaging and all the shipping. That's going to give you a lot more time to concentrate on other things like growing your business, for example, or doing an e-commerce course. And a nice little bonus there as well is your supplier is looking after those returns. And those returns can come in damaged, can come in late, can come in with open packaging, and they're hard to resell, but you don't need to worry about that. That's something that your supplier has to take the responsibility for. And that can be a big cost to businesses, and it's going to be a cost that you won't have. And of course, we're all about lowering costs. And at the bottom, we've got our little tip. Google loves websites with lots of stock. Having 100 items in a category rather than 5 is way, way better for customers and way better for Google. You're going to rank higher on a product page if you have more products. And that's very, very important. Of course, drop shipping, as you know, comes with a lot of negatives. The margins are low because there's less profit per sale when you compare to buying in bulk. And if you're shipping from overseas, there's going to be import duty and massive shipping costs because you're usually shipping individually. And all of that's going to kill your margins even more. It's very often a crowded field. It's full of competition, especially with people selling the same items, and especially if you're on one of those drop shipping websites. So try to avoid them. Most of the common dropship models are about low price, high volume. They don't really care about good service, which could cause you problems with your customers down the line. And the most reputable dropshipping suppliers won't let you in easy. They won't just let anyone with a website supply their goods. So it can be quite hard to get in with the good companies. And of course, you don't have control over the logistics. Sometimes that can be good because it frees up time, but if they're not getting your orders out fast enough, it's going to lead to complaints. If orders are arriving damaged, it's going to lead to complaints. All of that gives a bad customer experience, especially if it came from abroad and they got some import duty bill that was more than the actual item cost. And customers are wise to this. If it's coming from China, they're less likely to buy from you, and hiding it is quite dishonest. So when they find out, again, it's another reason for them to be unhappy. And if you have a lot of unhappy customers that couldn't return goods, that weren't happy about import duties and all the problems that dropshipping can give you, you end up getting bad reviews, and then your company gets a bad reputation, and it's very, very difficult for you to continue to do business. And my top tip is to watch out for these numerous websites and affiliates that are promising the earth, make it look really attractive, but when you really, really dial down into it, all they're trying to do is sell you subscriptions. So one of the most common websites that I see advertised all the time is Tradell. It's the big drop shipping company. You get started for free. They give you all these amazing reasons why it's good. They'll create a store for you. They'll fill your store with products. They make it sound super easy. It's all automated. It's fast. It all sounds so good to be true. But when you dial down into the actual margins, they're pretty low, and there's 100 people selling the same products as you. And what they're really after are these pricing models. They want to charge you monthly fees, and they've got thousands of people paying these fees every month. And that's how they're making their money. Now, I've used dropshipping, but I've used it in a very different way. And this is how I think people should use dropshipping if they're going to. Because adding new items is free if you've got a website. Although I had products that I bought in bulk often, I would bulk up my inventory using my supplier's other product ranges. So maybe I go to a supplier, I buy some items from them for stock, but I take their whole catalog and put it on the website. And when you have more products, then you've got more visibility on Google Shopping and in marketplaces. If you've got 1,000 products out there rather than 50, that's a lot more fishing hooks in the water to catch a lot more fish. And often your suppliers are very happy for you to showcase their latest products. And when there's more products to browse on your website, that attracts more customers, but it also helps keep them on the website longer. Of course, you can use those other drop-shipped products to steer customers towards the products you have in stock, because usually the products you have in stock will be better value and they'll have more reviews or best sellers or in more prominent positions. And you can always advise your customers that these are the right products for you. And usually you're being honest because you're stocking the best product and drop shipping the products that you maybe don't think are as good. And last but not least, having all those extra products on your website will increase turnover. Yes, they'll probably not be the majority of your sales, but they might add an extra 10 or 20%. And you've done all that without any extra investment other than just listing it on your website. So what about keeping those overheads low? Straight away, just being an e-commerce business means you can work from home. That negates the need for offices, warehouses, all those things we talked about before. And that's going to eliminate a lot of overheads. And I think it's very important to build your knowledge for DIY skills. That means a lot of the things that you're going to want to do, such as marketing, for example, when you increase your knowledge in that, you'll not have to pay someone else to do it for you, because marketing agencies are expensive, consultants are expensive. I should know. I am a consultant and I charge a lot. But if you can learn to do it yourself, you're going to save on all those fees. And with all those savings, you can reinvest those profits back into your business to help scale it even more. And my first big business that I started was a side hustle. I still worked my 9 to 5, but in the evenings and weekends, I was building my online kite shop. But I kept my day job until my kite surfing shop was making enough money that I could dedicate myself to it full time. And we mentioned it before, those small items are perfect because you can store them at home. And that is a real advantage. You can still buy them in bulk, still get good deals on them, but you can store them in your spare room. When I started my kite surfing shop, I had surfboards in the bath, I had kites in cupboards, I had 2 sheds out the back of my house, all to allow me to hold stock at no extra cost. Eventually, I did move to a premises with a massive warehouse beside it, but not before I was turning over more than enough to justify it. And don't forget, those big items can be even better to drop ship. So let's say you wanted to start selling jacuzzis. Well, all you really need is a website, and then you can phone up suppliers, especially local ones, and say, hey, I've got a great business here. I've got a great website. I have customers. I want to add your products to my website. And a lot of time, if it's bulky items, they're much more open to supplying you. And customers are much more open to paying upfront for bulky items. So that can be a dropship model that has very low overheads that works. And something like jacuzzis or similar products, they have maintenance and care products, so you can get that repeat business with them too. Now, please don't all go and sell jacuzzis at once, but look for products like that. And when you do come to invest in premises, make sure it is for space to scale, not for show. Having a premises does not guarantee more customers. I would only look at committing to that sort of overhead when you really need the extra space. Keeping your overheads low is paramount for making sure your business survives. And if you can keep them low and keep the motivation high, you've got the best chance of succeeding. And we are done for the day. So well done. You've completed your first class with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. What I would really love is to hear some feedback from you guys. I want to improve and get better in this as much for you guys as for me. So please jump into the community, fire in any questions you have. Let me know what you thought of the video, what you liked and what you didn't like. So I'll be sure to improve as we go. So thank you all again for watching.